realm, however, can be very hard to grasp, and this is part of our programming. As children, we are taught about worlds, and these worlds are represented as planets of spherical mass. But what is interesting is that we are not provided with an alternative world to Earth, where there is an abundance of life present, and that exists and thrives within different biological, chemical, geological, and atmospheric conditions. We are alone on our little globe and in our merry-go-round solar system. They have worked very hard to convince us that we are completely alone. But perhaps this is not the case. And despite the heliocentric lies, if there were other worlds or realms, then it is highly likely that the conditions of those realms would be very distinct, and the genetics of earthly human life would not be compatible with its environment. And the Bible makes this explicitly clear in drawing a distinction between angelic and human beings. Many have written on the genetic corruption of the antediluvian world outlined in Genesis, and I highly recommend pursuing books by theologians Ryan Peterson and A.W. Pink, who both offer excellent analysis of many known and lesser known books and verses, some of which I will cover here. In explaining the glorified spiritual body, Paul states, "All flesh is not the same flesh, but there is one kind of flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, another of fishes, and another of birds. There are also celestial bodies, and bodies terrestrial. But the glory of the celestial is one, and the glory of the terrestrial is another. So also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown in corruption, it is raised in incorruption. It is sown in a natural body, it is raised in a spiritual body. There is a natural body and there is a spiritual body, and so it is written." These passages describe two types of human-like bodies: terrestrial, which belongs to our realm, and celestial, which belongs to another realm. These passages also indicate that both human terrestrial and angelic celestial genetics, although distinct, are also very similar. And this is why angelic-human relations, in terms of reproduction, were possible in the first place. As the passage also states, God gives it a body as it hath pleased him, and to every seed his own body, indicating that angelic beings can indeed reproduce. And as Psalm 78 states, "And it had rained down manna upon them to eat, and had given them of the corn of heaven. Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full." We see here that humans are able to eat the same food that angels can eat. In Daniel 8, the prophet encounters the angel Gabriel face to face and describes him as having the appearance of a man. The scriptures have always been very clear in the genetic similarities of both angelic and human beings. The key difference being that the human being is of the earth, i.e. is limited to the earth, can decay and die, and the angel is not. My point here is not to argue that the distinction between celestial and terrestrial bodies is the truth. There is, after all, no evidence that celestial bodies exist. My point is to demonstrate that the Bible contains a wealth of information regarding genetics and places genetic corruption as the primary driver behind the Great Flood reset. And this is what is often severely overlooked when it comes to the flood. Even in circles that are aware of resets, many attempt to claim that Noah's story is a metaphor for a cyclical recurring natural phenomena that creates worldwide floods within our realm. But they often overlook the scripture's explanation as to why God flooded the realm in the first place. The corruption of genetics between species. The why is always more important than the what. And I can hear the skeptics snigger already. They want to shout that the notion of a celestial body, i.e. everlasting life after death, was invented to control the masses into obedience. Nothing more, nothing less. Just because they talk about celestial bodies does not mean that those that wrote scripture understood genetics. The skeptics, who adore and nourish their prism, who fly their own